Zegt Menochos, daf Tes Zayin Amar Aleph. We're starting from Tes Vav Amud Beis, from the Mishnah on Tes Vav Amud Beis. Okay, it says in the Mishnah, Hazevach Nefageles on the Nesachim. A carbon that's brought with a Nesachim. A Nesach means with a libation of wine, let's say, or oil, usually it's wine. So if he had a Machshavas Pigel means that while he was shechting a carbon, he had in mind not to eat it in the right time that the Torah allows you to. He had in mind, I'm going to save this meat for the next week's bar mitzvah. So that's Pigel. Not only does it make the meat Pigel, but it makes the Nesachim, the wine that's connected to the carbon, also into Pigel.
Whatever's involved together.
Whatever's involved. Misha Kachu. That's only Misha Kachu, but please shut it. Only if the Nesachim was poured into a Kli Sharis, and the Kli Sharis makes it holy. So once it became holy, so then the Nesachim becomes also, and then he had the Machshavas Pigel by the Zevach. So then because the Kli Sharis made a part of the carbon. But before it became holy, it's not part of the carbon.
No, but it become holy, the pigel will help to show.
Then the pigel helped. Then you have pigel, Amashavas pigel, and the Nesachim is part of the Zevach. Why? Because once he put in the Kli Sharis, it became part of the carbon. There we have Meir. Those are the words of Meir. And Nesachim, but if it's the reverse, if he had a machshava about the wine to drink it after the allotted time for he's saving this wine for the bar mitzvah for next week. So the pigel is only on the nesachim and not on the carbon. So then it's not mefagel the zevach; it's only mefagel the nesachim. Says Gemara Ketzat. How is the case talking about it? Somebody who slaughters the carbon with the intention to eat it for the next day, which is pigel. Who unesachap mefagel. Sorry. That same thing. The next day is after this man, or for the call it the bar mitzvah day. So side the carbon inside the nesach become pigel. Lahakriv nesachah. But what's if he only had in mind pigel by the libation, by the wine, to have the wine to drink lemacha. Lemacha, I'll say for next week after the allotted time, which is considered as pigel. Only the nesachim is going to be pigel, but not the carbon. The niske means the nesachim, the libation, the wine that comes together with the carbon of the behema. You're chayiv if you eat and drink it. You're going to be chayiv pigel. Because the dam of the zevach, if you remember, the only things that could become pigel if there's something else that is being materit. But if there's nothing else that could be materit, then it's not pigel. L'mashal, kmitza. Kmitza is the beginning. There's nothing else that allows you to do kmitza. Kmitza is the beginning of the Aveda. So here, when we're talking about Nesachim is not the beginning when he pours the wine into the thing. What makes it mutter the Nesachim? There's the dam of the carbon. So the dam is matin l'karv. So then those are the words of Meir. That's why the Nesachim becomes.
Let's say you have pigel when you shech the carbon, right? But then you don't go market the carbon. So does it stay pigel?
He had in the time of the zvicha after.
No, the shchita.
Yeah, we're talking about.
When he shechted the
we said Hasheichet is Hazevach Lachlum Man and Lumakar. So then.
So when does it become pigel? That moment?
When he finishes the Haveda, after the
Zika.
Yeah,
right?
Kolzman, the Haveda is not finished. We learned that before. It has to be a full Haveda. How can you say that the Nesachim is part of the carbon? We know you could bring the carbon itself, the behemoth today, and the Nesachim you could bring 10 days later. That's the halacha. So they're not connected.
You learned that already?
Yeah, we learned that before. So Meir said back, Afani lo yamarti, elo, only in the case of Shabayin, Yachdim Nazevach, only when you bring the Nesachim together with the Zevach. So the Chacham said, Evshe l'shanayisen, the Chacham argued, they say, even if he brings it together with the Zevach, it's still not connected to the Zevach. I could change my mind and say, I don't want this Nesachim with this carbon. Well, even if I brought it together, I say, I'm changing my mind. I want this Nesachim to go for a different carbon. He could.
then
So
what's
it's
the
two
difference?
entities. So
therefore
since
we
it's
have
two,
to- if you
so
have
therefore the
three-
Chachamim say that it's not.
Now what?
It's not. The Nesachim is not considered as a chelik of the zevach, and it doesn't become pigul through the zevach. It's not connected.
Also, never becomes big
Not according-
unless he thinks directly on the Nesachim.
No, he says it doesn't become a zevach achar because he could change it for a different carbon.
Who did the Nesachim?
The Rabbanan argue with Rav Meir that the Nesachim do not become pigul because Nesachim is
Never?
no, because even when you bring it together, he can change his mind with Nesachim to bring it with a different carbon. So it's considered as two separate entities.
It has a protection like it's
So it's not connected to the Nesachim, and therefore when he has,
not connected.
it's not connected to the carbon.
Zevach.
So when he has the zevach, Machshavas pigul, it doesn't transfer to the Nesachim. The Nesachim is not part of it. Amar Rava said, "Kasav Rav Meir hukbu b'shchita." He says, "Kilach me'teda." Rava said, Rav Meir holds the moment that he designated this zevach meaning that this nesachim should go for this zevach at the time of the shchita, then it has a din like lach me'teda that the carbon teda be'es hashchita, right? The lach me'teda is connected. So too the
You can't use
nesachim.
it for anywhere else.
Then you can't move. You can't move it to anywhere, right?
So the same thing they hold. The same thing
So
goes with the
therefore it's connected when you bring it together. That's what Rav Meir holds.
Nesachim. So they both-
That's
they're
what-
like two extremes, right?
Right. Tony Rabbanim Migalat, look Shemen Shel Matzeda. If you remember the Shemen Shel Matzeda, you by Matzeda you place the dam first on the Tnucha Oizen of a Matzeda. Once he's healed, you place the blood on his earlobe, on his fat thumb, and on his toe. But then you take the Shemen, the look Shemen.
What's the skinny thumb?
No, I meant the thumb. Okay, look, Shel Matzeda, the shaman is only brought after you bring the dam. So it's like the dam, first the dam allows only afterwards to use the shaman. So it's like before not. So it's the dam that's matter the shaman. So look, Shel Matzeda, Chayom Olam Mishum Pigul. We say that if a kohen had a machshavas pigul in the carbon asham, so the look shaman that comes with it becomes pigul also. Why?
That comes after the dam. also.
That comes after the dam because Shadam Aosh Matril B'Hainis. He says anything that's becoming mutter from something else could become pigul. This shaman became mutter because of the dam. Those are the words of Rav Meir. So Chacham said to Rav Meir, "Haloi Adam, maybe Hashomer Hayoim, v'Heslugim become outside of Yomim." He says
So we see
it's
we
not
start-
connected. You could bring the Hashem today, and the lug of Shem you can bring 10 days later.
Who's
So
saying this? Rabbanim are saying
the
this?
Rabbanim saying back to Rav Meir, Am Lahan, so they said back. Am Lahan, so Rav Meir said back to Chacham, Afani lo yamati, Ella beba im ha'ashim. Only when it comes together with the Ashim. Am Lois, the Chacham said that doesn't help. Efshel l'shamnis l'ashim acher. You could take this look shemen when I brought it with this Ashim and say, I'm bringing it together. I don't want it with this Ashim. I want it with that Ashim. On the last moment, yeah, Amarava. So Rav Meir came and said, no, Rav Meir said, Hukbu b'shchita, that the Shas of Shchita, when he had in mind to bring this Lug Hashemen, at the time of Shchita, he can't change it to another Asham. So it's connected. Kilach Meiteda, just like Lach Meiteda. Sagt the Mishnah, the Heilige Mishnah, the next Mishnah, Pigel b'shkemetz. If he had a Machshavas Pigel during the Kmitza, meaning, if he had during the time that he was burning the kaimetz on the mizbeach, the kmitz is the how do you call it, this fistful, and he puts it, he takes it off the flour, and once he burns it on the mizbeach, he can eat the rest of the mincha. So he took this kaimetz, and while he took this kaimetz, he had a machshava to burn it after it's a lot of time, okay, or to eat the shirayim after it's a lot of time. But now, there are two things that allow you to eat the shiraim of the mincha, the leftover flour of the mincha. Side the kmitza, the fistful of the soiles, and side the levina has to also be burned. So by which part of that's mata the shiraim? Only by one part. By the kmitza part, he had the machshavas psul, machshavas pigel. Says the Gemara, or he had only the levina, or he had only the machshavas pigel by the levina, that's the spices. but not by the fistful of the sailors. Meyema pigul. Mega says the common is pigul, and those that eat from the shiraim chayam
What
malek
about
kares.
the Levine is also pigul?
No, the levena is not the levena is a davamat. That's matter. With these koimets and the levena itself,
No, it says pigul b'koim is the Levine.
levena. If he had
What
only,
did he do with the Levine? He was makrabid, right?
yeah, both of them go on the fire. So when he had on Shev's pigul, we want to know, does it affect the shirayim?
Oh, talking about the
Shirayim, yeah, because it comes in levena. There's no pigul that affects itself. It has to have something davar mater. These are one of the things that don't become pigul. But if he's being mefagel the
So Levine
shirayim,
is not matter anything.
no, there's nothing being mater the levena.
If you don't bring the Levine, it doesn't pass the carbon, no?
Yeah, the levena is matter something else, but there's nothing that's matter the levena. You remember we learned the items that cannot become pigul? If it's something that's not making it mutter. A koimetz, there's nothing making the koimetz mutter to do the kmitza. So
No, the carbon
koimetz,
doesn't make anything on the Levine.
no, but right, that also not. The koimetz and levena are two dava hamatirin that are matter the shirayim of the mincha to be eaten. And now he's saying if he had only a machshav spigul by one and not by the other, by the two dava matirim, he only had a machshav spigul by one of them.
So Rameir says that pigul b'koim.
So Ameya says pigul v'chayam alav karas.
In other words, if you had pigul,
A machshav spigul by the levena, so then it becomes
so therefore it's pigul.
the whole shiraim is pigul. Pigul. So he says so those that eat from the shiraim chayam alav karas. What? Yes.
Everything is pigul.
Not koimetz itself is pigul. Koimetz is not shaykh to become pigul. Koimetz is mefagel the shiraim. Well, but Chacham say ain't by chiyuv kares. There's no chiyuv kares actually chav bechol hamate till there's a pigul beside by the levena and the koimetz. If it's only a pigul by one out of the two, then the shiraim are not pigul. He says the whole aveda that you burn by the keteiros to be matter the shiraim, the pigul has to be on both side on the koimetz and the levena that you're burning on the mizbeach. The machshava had to be a machshava spigul by both. Yeah, moed chacham, the whole set. Yeah, the whole lulav set. Moed chacham le abmeya b'minchas chini b'minchas kinayis. But chacham moed abmeya if he only had a machshava spigul in the kvitza by minchas chayta or minchas kinayis, she'im pigul by kaimitz. If he had a pigul in the kvitza, shehu pigul chayam aleh kares. Because the only thing that's being matted, there's no levena by Minchas Chayta, if you remember. There was only one thing that's being matted the whole shirayim by Minchas Chayta, the kmitza itself. So therefore it's going to passel the rest of the shirayim. Shachtach minakvasim on Shavuos they brought two kivsei atzeres in order to be matted the shtei halechem. So he had in mind, he shechted one, lechem shtei hachavs l'macha. He had in mind to eat while he was shechting the kivsei atzeres, one of them, that's only one of the matirim, he needed to do two to be matir the shtei halechem. He had in mind to eat the shtei halechem by one of the shchitas, to eat it after its time. By the first kevis. And so too, by the lachma panim, in order to be able to eat the bread on the lachma panim, there were 2 spoons with keteiros. In order for the lachma panim to come mutter, you had to take both spoons and burn it. But what did he do? By one of the spoons, he had in mind to eat from the zdarim, each say the 6 chales, lemacha, to eat it after its man. Rabbeinu says it's pigul. Chacham say no. It can only become pigul if he did it. He had the machshavas pigul by both position, or he had the machshavas pigul by the shnei kivsei atzeres for the shnei chales. But if he only had by one kivsei keves, or he had the machshavas pigul, or he only by one bozach, 1 spoon of keteiros, then it's not pigul, according to the Chachamim. He could eat it. He says, oh, he's going to say, we're going to learn about its puzzle. It is puzzle, but it's not chayiv kares if you eat it.
So it's not pigul.
It's puzzle, according to the Chachamim. It's not pigul. If he shacht one of the kvasim to eat from the flesh of the keves, on the next day. Pigel chaknaakares. If it's possible, no, you can get away with it. If he had a mind to eat it from the boss of the kevis when he shechted it, he had a mind to eat it for the bar mitzvah day, not for the day that you have to eat right away. Or for the chasneichet. Yeah, he had a mind for a long time.
Talk about it, but missing, 'cause we went to a mitzvah.
Okay. Okay. Lamacha, then who pigel? Then it becomes pigel. V'chaveirei kosher. And the second kevis where he didn't have machshavas pigel, that one is kosher according to Ameya.
We consider them like two separate yonim?
Yeah, it's two separate kvasim.
But it's really one.
But you
one
can't have
avodah.
in mind while you're doing a shechita one keves, right? A machshavas pigel on the second keves. When I shech the second keves, I'm gonna eat it next week. That's not gonna help. Ein mate mefago mate. Only in the or in this behemoth that you shech in itself, you have in mind this behemoth. If I finish the shechita, I'm gonna eat it next week. So then it's pigel. That behemoth is pigel, but the second one not. V'chaveirei kosher. Lechem mechaveirei l'machal. But see, by the first keves he had in mind, I'm gonna eat. When I shech the second kevis, I'm going to eat it next week. Then he says, Shneim kshenim, it's not b'chlal gonish, it's both kosher. Okay?
Because he didn't do any avodah.
Because ein mater, mefago mater. One mater, they're both, these two are mater. You need both of them, these two kvasim, kivsi atzeres are mater the shtei achalis. So therefore, if he had only by one, and he had a mind for another, ein mater, mefago a different mater. It could be mefago itself, but not another matter. Okay. So Rav said, Hamachleikis between Rabnei and Chachamim was said, She nos hakometz v'shtikoi. But the kometz he did perfect. He didn't have any machshava pigel.
He did a good job.
He did a good job. As halaveidim machshava. But when it came to Levaina, he had a machshava's pigel. So then that's what the Machlekes is. Abneya says, listen, it's all pigel. And meaning the Levaina is mefagel the shirayim. And the Chacham say it's not. It's possible. So the Gemara, Avalim Nasan Hakim's Machshava, as Alavin Vashtika. But what's if the first one was Machshava Spiegel, and the second one there was no Machshava, it was
It
Tam?
was quiet.
So Litivi Hakol Pigel. Everybody says it's Pigel. Why? Sheken Kolais Aldas Shenu because whatever he did, and the second one was with the same mindset as the first one that was Lach Azman. Shmuel says even if the first one was Machshava Spiegel and the second one was quiet, we don't say Aldas Rishona. He argues. And Rabbi Yochanan also said, Rabbi Meir says, or if you want to, it's Rabbi Meir, or who gave the svarah for Rabbi Meir was Rav. Rav explained that the Machlek was only if it started off with Shtika, and then the end was with a Machshava Spiegel. But if the first one was Machshava Spiegel, then we say when he does the second part, he's doing it with the same mindset as the first one, which is Pigel.
That's Rameya?
That's Rav explains.
Okay.
That there's no machlekes. He says even the Chacham made in such a case that's going to become Pigel. Only if the first one was Shtika, Stam Machshav, and the second one was Pigel. So Rav Meir says it's Pigel, and the Chacham say it's not because you have to have it by both. But if the first one was Pigel and the second one was Stam, we consider it as if it was Pigel by both. And Shmuel argues, and Shmuel says, I don't agree with that the Machlekes was, even when the first Machshava was Pigel, we don't say the second one, even though it was Tam, is Aldas Rishona. He doesn't hold of that. Talking about Yosef Rava, the Kamal Shmaiti said about this sugya that Rav said that Mefalosich if an Eshter Machshava, that if the first one was Machshava's Pigel and the second one was Tam, we say it was Aldas Rishona. Rav Huna is the Kasha and Rav Ahmed, but remember that the Mincha becomes Pigel, Bekmitza, Ube Matan Kli, Ube Hiluch, by three Avedas, by these three Avedas, by the Kmitza, and by placing the Kmitza into a Kli Shades, Ube Hiluch means bringing the Kaimetz to the Haktara. Ava Balei La Haktara. But if, see, these three Avedas are not shaykh by the Levena. These three Avedas are only shaykh by which one? By the Kmitza. But when you're talking about the Haktara, Nasan as Hakemitz Veshtika, as Alavedim Machshava, as Hakemitz Machshava, as Alavedim Veshtika, Rav Meir Yoima, Arez Pigul Chayam Allah Kares. He says, once you're talking about Haktara, Haktara,
To bring it over.
by Haktara, they both have in common Kmitza and Levina have to be by the Haktara. Again, Levina and the Kmitza have to be burned.
Together.
Haktara, that's part of the Aveda for Levina. All the other ones, placing that Kli Sharis doesn't exist by Levina. Or the Hiluch and the putting in the Kli.
Still back over.
It's not by the Kmitza, but not by the Levina. Not by the Sailors.
Rameir says they wanted it. If you have piggled by the Levina, even though you didn't have by the.
So if it was by the Haktara, where both are supposed to be sacrificed, right? They both are having common the Aveda burning. So he says if he started off with the Kmitza B'Shtika, no Machshava, and the Levina, the second one was Minah Machshava, or the Kmitza was Machshava and the Levina was B'Shtika, right? Meir says in both cases it's Pigel and Yechayiv Kodesh.
The Levina one is piggle, right?
Right.
Why? Because they're already up to the Haktara.
Because by the Haktara they both have in common the same Aveda, yes. Till you do a pigel in both, because they're both being matter. The Levina with the Kmitza are the ones that are being matter, the Shirayim.
Shirayim or Shtei Lechem we're talking?
Shirayim. So there's not until he does both. Nasan Sakim is Machshava and Salavina B'Shtika. If he did the Kmitza Machshava and the Levina B'Shtika, and then Upligi, there's a Machlekes.
What's the Machlekes? He did everything.
He did Kmitza Machshava, right? And the Levina Machshava. So Chachamim argue on Rameh in such a case and say that it's not going to be pigel, even though the first one was Machshava and the second one was B'Shtika. And Rav said it's everybody, even the Chachamim say Al Das Shayna, that it's all pigel because this when by Levina he didn't say anything, but it was Mistama with the same intention that he had by the Kmitza, which was Machshava's pigel. And here, no, the Chachamim said it's not. So you see, you don't follow Das Shayna, it goes against Rav. Yeah, because Rav says it. According to Chachamim, if the first one was Bepigel and the second one was B'Shtika, it's as if all of it was Bepigel, even according to Chachamim, because it was a Al Das Shayna. It was the same intention as the first one was by the second one. And the Gemara, Ema Ukvanos Salved B'Shtika Yikara say that the case is not talking about that the first one was Machshavas Pigel. He says when he says that the Koimetz was Machshavas Pigel, but he first did with the Levena Shtika. He started off with the Levena with a Stamashov first. So it wasn't Adas Yishayna. Adas Yishayna was a Shtika first. Says the Gemara, Shtei Troops Madavi. I have two kashas on this. First of all, the Hainu Kamaisa. This is Mamish, the first case of the Mishnah. What do you say the case is now? That the first case was Shtika, the Levena was Shtika, and the second case, Machshavas Pigel. This is mamish the case of the first case that we learned. It's just not the Levena B'Shtika, he used the Kmitza B'Shtika. That's a Levena Machshav, but the Ik is, what was the first case Shtika, and the second one was Machshava. And that's how you learned just now, that the first case was Shtika, but Levena, the second one was Machshavas Pigel. Why are you saying it over, even though it doesn't make a difference which one is first? Tanya, we learned Befedish in the second Baraisa, Shenosens HaKoimetz Machshava, and then number two, you learning a pshat which doesn't fit the words. You're learning that there was first the Levena B'Shtika, but if you look in the Mishnah in the Baraisa, it says Shenosens HaKoimetz Machshava, and then it says Ve'achar kach, after the Koimetz was b'machshava, Nasan Salvayna B'Shtika.
You said B'Shtika, you said B'Shtika?
HaKoimetz, he did about Koimetz machshava. And then it says Ve'achar kach Nasan Salvayna B'Shtika. But you're learning, it was the Levena came, it was already B'Shtika kvar before the machshava spiegel of the Koimetz. It says doesn't fit with the words. I don't know what you're talking about.
Either way, you're saying the same thing, that the Levena was B'Shtika, right?
No. Levena B'Shtika, Koimetz B'Shtika, that's not the punchline. The punchline is, was there a machshava by the first one or shtika by the second one? So the shtika is al das Yishayna, or was it shtika by the first
Depends what
one?
the what was the Rishayna? What was the Rishayna?
I'm
If it
saying
was a Kaim, it's okay, Pashtaya.
right.
But
So
if it was a Levina, was
true.
was the beginning?
So you learned shot that the first case was b'shtika. When it says that Kametz as Lavena, or Lavena, Kametz as, I'm sorry, Kametz b'machshava, or Lavena b'shtika, you learn that the Chacham still say, you're not Semich Das Yishena. He says, no, that's not the shot. When it said Kametz, Kametz b'machshava, or Lavena b'shtika, Lavena came first, he says. He says if Lavena came first, so you learn
Levina was Mishtika. So
Lavena b'shtika was
fine.
first, and then came the Kametz b'machshava.
So what do you want
Says
to
I
say?
have two problems about the Levina, the Shtika case being first. We already learned in the Braisa. It does.
Everybody agrees, right?
Yeah, we already learned the case of Shtika first. Maybe we learned it by the Kmitza of Shtika, but it doesn't matter. The punchline is the Shtika coming first, and then the Machshava. So it says, it says, what do you have to say it again? Number two, if you read the words, it's not the case. You read the words in the Braisa, it says Kamaz b'machshava, and then it says V'achakach alavena b'shtika. So it means the Kmitz machshava came first. Okay, so you want to tell we're talking about two different people, and therefore it's not shaykh al das Hashoina, and you can't bring a raya that we don't follow das Hashoina because it was done by two different people. He says the first one, the kohen was did burnt it machshavas people. And the second one was a second kohen, the Levina. A second kohen did the Levina b'shtika. So he said, don't say the second kohen did al das the first one. Each one has his own mind.
So what would be the din?
So you can't bring a raya from there. You don't follow das Hashoina.
There's no pig along the
So it's
Levina.
you don't say that it's al das Hashoina that the Levina became pigul. And according to Rabbi, I don't need both to be pigul. It's still going to have a din of pigul on the shirai. According to Chacham, not. It's two different people. Tashma, come in here and I'll bring you a kasha. We said, when did we say the machshavas chutz lizmanoi by matan achas? B'dama neton al mizbeach hachitzin. It says by mizbeach hachitzin you have to spray a whole bunch of sprays, 7 sprays. But al pidin, one spray is enough to be mate. The carbon. Aber bedamme haneton al mizbach hapnimi kigoin aboim shalish matanes shal yom kippurim. But when it came to the danim, the blood of the sawyer, there was a blood of the sawyer and the par that was brought. The sawyer, the par of sawyer pnimim. So you had first the kohen gadol brought the dam hapart into the kodesh hakadoshim and on Yom Kippur, and he sprayed first achas lamayla. Towards the Orim. V'sheva hazoyis klapim mata and 7 on the bottom. And so too he did with the dam hasoyer. So that's 8 and 8. 7 achas l'mayla v'sheva l'mata. 8 for the par, 8 for the soyer. You're already 16. Then you did with the dam. Then you went outside the kodesh hakadoshim towards the pareiches. 8 and 8. So it's another 16. 16 and 16. It's 32. Then you had another another 4 on the four corners of the mizbeach pnimi. So 4 plus 32 is 36. Then it said on the top where the ash was on the mizbeach, you did 7 zikas. So 7 plus 36 is 43. 43 hazois.
What if the kohen doesn't know how to count?
No, he knows how to count. Don't worry. So he says in 43. Then you had also oh yeah. Racha says a shapar kohen HaMashiach.
Yeah, no blood in it.
They had a lot of blood. They had different behemoths. So he says now you had 11 of the par kohen HaMashiach. How did you have 11? So he says you did sheva hazois keneged apareiches, and then you put 4 on the mizbeach itself on the 4 corners is 11. The same thing. Says the Gemara Pigel Bein Barishena Bein Bashniya Bein Bashlishis. There were 3 kfutzis. The first kfutza of Matnas Dam was done in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. The second kfutza was done inside towards the Pareiches. On the
before you went into the pareches. Now you're doing again a second group outside the pareches.
That's the second
The-
16. That's the second 16.
Right. And the third group was done on the mizbeach, the four corners, and 7 on the
Yes, three
mizbeach.
different kinds. How are doing these things?
No, one kohen doing 3 groups. So he says, if he had a machshavas pigul by one of the groups.
This is the Kohen Gadol that's doing all this.
Yeah. So now he had a machshavas pigul. So he says, pigul, if he had a machshavas pigul by one of the sets, bein b'rishon, bein b'shni, bein b'shlish, pigul. That those that eat from the par is pigul and is chayv kodesh, even though he only had a machshavas pigul by one of the groups, either the one inside the Kedesh HaKadoshim or the set
Well,
that
they're
was.
all related to each
They're all
other.
related, sure. It's the Sarah and the par. Chayam lo kodesh. Chacham me'en by kodesh ha'chi yifag b'chol ha'mata. Chacham say no. All 3 groups, all 3 sets. You had to have machshavas pigul. Tani miha, but we learned pigul bein b'rishon, bein b'shnei, bein b'shlishis. We learned by all 3, whether you, even by the Shayna, you said upligi. They still argue Rab Meir and the Chachamim l'cheira
Well, which end?
by the first set. Let's say you had machshavas pigul, and you say all 3 groups are really as of one carbon. So say when he did the second group was Aldas Shayna with a machshavas pigul, and the third group also.
So all 3 of them.
Right. So why the Chacham said no? If he only had pigul by the first one, it's not, you're not chayiv kodesh, because you had to have pigul by each group.
Yeah. So what's
L'cheira, according to Rav, if by the first one you had pigul, all the groups that come after is Aldas Shayna goes with the same intention, with the same hashava of pigul. So the Chacham should have said that it is pigul, and you chayiv kodesh, and the Chacham say not. And Rav said before the Chachamim. Yes. And if you want to answer, yeah, but b'shtei days, we're talking about it was different kahanim by the groups of the blood.
Each one is separate.
So you can say das and it's 2 different sets of kahanim, 2 different kahanim. This only makes sense according to Mandi par, par, that by a par and even by the blood of the par, so that even though it's 2 separate people, he could continue with the blood of the par. So then you say, okay, it's talking about 2 kahanim, and it's not shaykh to say al das shayna, but it's shaykh to say there were 3 groups between the 2 kahanim. One kohen did the first group, and the second kohen did the second and third group. It's shaykh, okay. But according to the Mandi Amma that says, if a new kohen comes in, let's say the first kohen became tamei, or the first kohen died, and now a new kohen takes over. You don't continue to the second group. If a second kohen, you have to start all over from the beginning. So how's it shaykh to say that it's 2 kahanim and there was between the 2 kahanim there were 3 groups of sprays? No, if the first kohen dies, the second kohen starts from the first group of sprays. Start all over. So where are you coming up with such a case even? What are you going to say then?
Everybody agrees with that?
Yeah, of course.
You start over.
No, according to the Mandama that says one Mandama says you don't start over. Well, yes, according to Mandama that says if the kohen died, it says start over. He has to start all
It's
over.
all one thing.
Yeah, he has to start all over. So then it's not right to say that there were 2 kahanim between the 3 groups of sprays. Over here it's talking about kikoyim, so since there was a pigul by the third case, the Amrina and Kola Isa Adas Sheno Isa, but Med the pigul b'shlish lamali. He says usually you say, okay, if by the first group he had machshavas pigul, and the second groups were quiet, so we say Adas Sheno. But here, what happened? The first group of sprays he had in mind machshavas pigul. Second one he was quiet. The third one again. He had machshavas pigul. That's
What
what.
does that do?
That shows us that he wasn't relying on das Shayna, because by the second one he kept quiet. Why? By the third one did he need a machshavas pigul?
So each one's different.
A separate
He
machshavas
forgot.
pigul? No. Okay.
No, because he was quiet on the
Okay,
second.
so
He
he's-
said, "Oh, I forgot about it."
No, he says it shows he wasn't al das Shayna. Masking Ravashi midu shasi katani. So Ravashi slugs up and he says, How could you say that that's the case?
So what do you want to say?
You want to say the reason why he wasn't Aldas Rishayna because he had a Machshavas Pigul by the third
So
one
what would be the
and by the
difference?
second.
What did you want to say?
You don't say Aldas Rishayna.
And what, therefore,
Therefore, the Chacham say it's not Pigul. You have no
the whole
raya.
thing is not pigul.
It's not Pigul, right? It's puzzle.
Because they said you have to do the whole thing.
But he can't rely on Aldas Rishayna. If it was Aldas Rishayna, he wouldn't have made
Wouldn't
a
be a
special
shikha.
shlishi, the special Machshavas Pigul. Okay, so Avashi asked the Kash Midrash Jaskitani. Like, are we learning a case that there was Machshavas Pigul by the first one, quiet by the second one, and the third one was Pigul? We never learned that. Avashi,
Why can't you learn that way?
it doesn't say that. Avashi, only Avashi, it says Bain by one of the groups. It says Bishniya. It says by the third group he was quiet. He only had in mind Machshavas Pigul the first and the second. So the Amin and Isa Kadai to Kolois Aldas Rishayna Lois and had to be good Bishniya Lamali. Why did he have to have Machshavas Pigul a second time? The first one was enough. Zaraya Hidaki wasn't relying on the first one.
Which was separate.
Right. So you can't bring a Raya Aldas Rishayna. Says you want that's not a case either that says in the Mishnah. It says he only had Machshavas Pigul by one of the three groups. Bain Katani. It says Bain Barishayna, Bain Bashniya, Bain Bashlishas. It says whether he had Machshavas Pigul only by the first set of sprays, second one or third one, but not by all, but not by two.
So then what's the difference? Even one is already passes?
Huh?
So even one passes the whole
Even
thing?
one. It's
That's
talking the
problem.
case. The case is talking about one. So the Chayra and the Chacham say it's still not Pigul. So you see, you don't follow Aldas Rishayna. It's a kash. Oh mama, the Tana said that May says Pigul v'chayab malak kares. That if he had Machshavas Pigul only by the first group of sprays, then he chayiv kares. Machdi lo ma'akukton. Kares le mechayiv. A person is not chayiv kares for eating a carbon shel spark. Actually, yikavu kol hamatinu. Till you finish the whole avodah and you makiv all those things that are mutter, all those things that are mutter the behemoth to eat. The mama for the Tana said yirotza. Kahatzor is kosher, kahatzor is possible. The only time when it becomes pigul is when you finish the whole avodah. Like you asked me at the beginning. I told you the pigul only takes place only after the spray of the dam. Here too, the pigul takes place only after all groups of sprays were finished. So then it becomes pigul. Just like there, till the whole avodah, by kosher is the whole avodah is finished. Hatzor is possible. Till the whole avodah is sacrificed. But here, the moment he had Machshavas Pigul with him, Pasley, he already passed the second two groups of blood. Because if he had a Machshavas Pigul by the first group, now we're saying the first group. Let's say you had a Machshavas Pigul by the first group, the second and third should be considered as water. So how could you say it's going to become Pigul by the end of the Haveda? Kimade, now when he's spraying the second group and the third group, the Heichel, he's only spraying blood, water. So how could it become Pigul? You're fine. It says that if somebody took a parasite, he did one group and he had blood and he spilled the whole blood. He takes another parasite for the second group, and he doesn't start from the beginning. He continues the second group. And let's say the second group would spilled again, continues the third group. That's the case. That's what it's talking about here. So you can't say, oh, the second blood became water because he shachted a new parasite for the second group. Because by the end of the first group, he spilled out the whole blood.
What did he have in mind when he did the first group? He
Oh, he Machshavas Pigul. But the second group, he continues. It's not Pigul. It's not water because he did another shechita for the parasite. And you continue the second group. And the same thing happened by the third group.
And he also had a Machshav in the second group?
No. And you're not going to say it's Aldas Rishayna.
Why not? Why not?
You could. We already passing that Chachamim argue. We don't go Aldas Rishayna. No, but we want to bring out how is it possible the kasha was it should be water. It's not water because he spilled it out, and by the second group he did a new shechita. It's a new blood. Yeah, and Rava says even parach v'soyachot. We already said lefagulim eratze. We said when we just like when he had Machshavas Pigul by shechita, the zika right? Let's say he had a machshavas pigul right by the shechita, right? We say it's considered as pigul, even though the zika that he's doing is after the machshava pigul. We don't say the zik zadam became water. So that here also, if during the shechita he had a machshavas pigul, we don't say it becomes water. Yeah. Like, right. So you want about Shas, we learned there are 43. We learned about we learned Abayis Abayis Shava. There are 47. So you want to lay kasha. It's not a kasha. That the par v'soyer they didn't do separate four on the mizbeach. They mixed the par and the soyer blood, and they did for the par and the soyer 4 times around. So that's why it was only 43.
He had another 4.
Yes, the shluchayah for the soy is another 4. He says no, you didn't. Yeah, he said you didn't do a second one. And the one that said 47 said you don't mix it; it's separate, and that's why it's 47. In fact, we learned 48. It says you remember there was a man that said that as long as he didn't put the shirayim in the mizbech, it's still ma'akiv from being able to eat the carbon. So the shiraim of the panimium of the left, the remnants of the blood, is still you still cannot eat from the carbon until you pour in the shiraim in the yisod. So it's considered as a matana itself. And the one that said it's 47, he said I don't count it.
Didn't we have this Gemara?
Yes. I thought it's going easy. If he had a Mashem Spiegel by bringing the kainetz to the Haktara,
That's an avoidance.
it's an avodah, but not by the Levina. Ma, what's going to be the din? According to the Chachamim, is it considered Mashem Spiegel or not? Just like by Kmitza, it's considered as a full avodah. So too, and if he had a Mashavas Spiegel when he was bringing the kainetz, the din it's chal. Halacha shama halacha kaptora. Halacha says the halacha is like the burning. So if that's like the burning, so it's also avodah for the levina. So if he only had a Mashavas Spiegel by the kainetz, according to the kainetz, it's not good enough. You have to have by both. So the Gemara Bishlam Halachish ikanami halacha levina. It's understood according to Halachish. You have halacha also by levina. I love here Rabbi my time. But according to Rabbi Yochanan, who says hilachas hakoimetz is it's not part of the avodah of the lavena. So my time, what's the reason the Chacham say that the lavena also has to have machshavas pigul, also has to be brought in the zayach? Any avodah that doesn't make something else mutter, right? La'achila or la'haktara avodah chshulihi. Lefagil alav ifnei atzma says any avodah that's not materes to come la'achila ilaktara, but it's avodah kshuva that meaning that the teres people should be shayich. So he says the halacha, which is avodah that's not ma'akiv, because you could bring the kainus and levanu and mizbeach without halacha. So it's not halacha is not avodah that's materes.
So therefore it's avoided for itself.
So Rabbi Yochanan says even.
So what does he say?
It's if it's part of the kmitza, so it's going to be part of the kmitza. It's not going to hinder the kmitza. The hilacha will not hinder the machshavas pigul of kmitza because the hilacha is not enough of aveda for levina to be hindered the kmitza.
The kmitza will become pigul.
So the kmitza will become pigul. Amalei Abai said back to the Rabbi in this case where he had machshavas pigul about the shtei alachem to eat it after a lot of time in the time of shchita sech min hakvasim. While he was shachting one of the kvasim of the kivsi atzeres, the aveda she'ina materasi. Listen, shchita is not an important aveda. It's not matter the carbon la'achilo alaktara. Upligi, nevertheless, the chachamim argue with Rabbi and they say that there's no teres pigul because he didn't have a machshava in both b'chol in the whole matter. The Tanan that we learned in the Mishnah Leil Amid Aleph, Shachlech min Akvasim, if he slaughtered one of the Kivsiyat Tzeres with the intention Lechel Mishtei Chalis Lamacha to eat the Shtei Chalis after the allotted time, Mechain Hiktech min Abazichin, if he shachted, he burnt one of the incense spoons of the one of the two. That's Mata de Lachem upon him, but he only did one. While he was burning one, he had a mind to eat from the 6 chalis after a lot of time. Pigel. The mayor says this carbon becomes pigel, and those that eat from the Shtei Lachem upon him, Chayom Alay Kares. Chame main by Piyu Kares. Chame says it's not Kares. Actually, Fagva Chalamata till he had the Meshavas pigel by either by the Shnei Hakvas and the Shnei Kipsi Atzeres, or by the Shnei Abezichim. If he only had in mind by one of them, then it's not going to become pigul. He's not going to be chayiv kares. Amalei, so Rava said back to Abaye, mi savris. Do we then hold by the lechem the shtei hachalis, but tano kodesh, that it becomes sanctified as part of the kedusha of the korban, the time when it's baked in the oven? That's quite mekachalei. The shechita itself is the part that is mekadesh the chalis. V'habola kaddish. And any avodah that's being mekadosh a part of the korban, kibola hatadam is considered as it has the chshivas as if it's being mat or something. So here, this shchita was mekadosh the pas betanor, so it has a din like it's a davar mata. That's why you need all the matinim in order to Mashem speak by all of them. That's what the Chacham say. It's going to be a hindrance. Meaning that if you don't have all Hashem speak by all the Cheshva Avedas, then it's not going to be a pigel. Must have Sibir Rabashi yes from the following brayso that this deals with Mashavas pigel not eaten in the time of the Shchitas Kam Pesach. Others say that one who shachs up Kam Pesach, and while he was shachting, he had in mind side for the kosher people that are gemalit, and side for the arelim, even for those that are not fit to eat from the korban. Hik the mulim arelim. What's if the first machshav he had was l'shem the ones that were circumcised, and then he had in mind l'shem arelim? Then the korban is kosher. The korban is kosher. But if his first machshav was arelim, and then the mulim and the machshav arelim came before the mulim, then pasul. This opinion argues on what we explained in the Mishnah, that one who shachs up Pesach mulim arelim, we said it's kosher b'cholinyan, even if he was magdim the arelim. Here he says no. If he was magdim the arelim, it's all going to be possible. The b'chatzin mata pligi, that the Mishnah and the Brayso are arguing with the to the Hashavas Psul in the part in the Zman when it was a chelik, or it was only a chelik of the mata, meaning it's talking about that he only, while he was shechting the first siman, there's the kana and the veshet. So when he was shechting, let's say the kana, he had a mind l'shem areilim itself, and then by the veshet, the second siman, he had a mind for the kosher. So since the shechita is what's matter, the shechita is only becomes mutter through cutting both simanim of the behema. So each siman is considered as a chatzi matter. So Amei, who is the Achedim, follows his shita that you couldn't, pigel could be even bechatzi amata. And since he had a Mashavas pigel for the areilim by one of the simanim, so the whole thing becomes pasul. And therefore the Mashavas areilim that he had in mind, the simulation, pasul the compessor. The Mishnah there follows the Shitz Chacham that say it doesn't become pigul b'chatzi mata, and even though he had in mind l'shem areilim alone by the first simin, even though he had in mind for areilim, it doesn't become possible because this machshava has to go through both simanim. You have to have machshavas for the areilim, for the ones that are possible to eat. Since he didn't have machshava by both simanim, so it's only by chatzi amater. So it's in the Chacham Holland. It's not going to become pigul. So Rav answered to Rav Simei. So Akaponim, you see, the Shitz Chacham was said even by Shchitas Korban Pesach, which is not the Aveda that's matir. The Shchitas Korban Pesach is not an Aveda that's matir anything. It's an unsignificant Aveda. And you said by an unsignificant Aveda, we merechnen sich nicht with the kana, veshet, if it's a chatzi mata. We say it does become pigul. Even so Amalei, so Rabbi said, what me savris, nam etzab behema kadesh. Do you think the blood automatically in the neck of the behema became holy? How does it become holy? Only through the shechita. Dam sakim ekachalei. the dam of the knife that Shachs made it holy. So it is a chashuva de kaveda because the shchita is mekadosh the dam. But the kaddish kebala hatadam is something that makes something holy that transforms a chulin de kedam into kaddish. It has a din like it's a davar mater. It's such a chashuv aveda, and therefore, if it's only by one of the simanim, it's called chatzei mater. By one of the simanim of the shchita, even though we thought it's insignificant, but now we see it's a very chesva aved because it's mekadosh the dam. Says Gemara Tashma coming here, and I'll ask Akash and Yishlakish, who says that Hashem Spiegel, while he's bringing the kaimetz, just by bringing the kaimetz, that doesn't interfere. Meaning, I'm sorry, the Yishlakish says it does interfere because the halacha bringing it has a din as the Haktorah. Toshma Kasha and Shlokish from the previous B'rais Amar Aleph. Bamet one of Hamurim that the mincha becomes Spiegel because of Machshava that was only by the Aved Sakaimetz when he had Machshava Spiegel by one of the following Avedas Bekmitza Ubematan Kli, or when he placed the Kaimetz into a Kli Shoris Ubehilel, and when he brought it. So this B'rais brought the Kaimetz. So you see that it's not a hindrance to make it considered as a chatzei amata. My love, hilach daktara. Stama the kavana is that the halacha was for daktara, and even by such a aveda, it helps. The pigul will help according to everybody. Even though b'lavena there's aveda the same of halacha, but since that halacha is not a cheshva aveda, so it's not going to be a hindrance to the machshava spiegel that he had in the kmitza. Says the Gemara Loi. He's not talking about the hilach to the Haktorah, where the levina is part of the aveda. The hilach the matan kli. He's talking about only benegay to the kmitza part, going to bring the kli sharis, the kaimetz. He's bringing the kli sharis in order to place the kaimetz in it. This aveda is taka not a aveda chashuva. And there's no such a Veda, there's no Matan Kli by Levena, there's no place in Levena in a Kli, and therefore the Baraisa says the Mashava Spiegel by the Kmitza will help. Says the Gemara Yehachiv. So if the Hilach that says in the Baraisa is talking about the bringing the Kmitza to the Kli Sharis, it should have said, it says B'Matan Kli, and then it says Hilach. If it's the bringing the matan kli, it should have said behilach, bringing the kli in order to place the kaimetz in the kli, behilach, and then over matan kli b'mayeh. So if you want to hold a kasha, it's not a question, because according to Shlakish, because Nehachitaki learned that first came hilach and then came matan kli. We learn like that. According to Shlakish, why does the Tana said ba'lei lahaktorah? It says that if the one that was doing the Aveda of the Kmitza and the Levena, so it says Ba'lei lahaktor of the burning of the Kmitza and the Levena. Chachamim say there's no kares till you have the Machshava Spiegel side by the Kmitza and the Levena by the Haktorah. So from here it's mashma that the Chachamim are arguing on Rameya only with the gate to the Aveda of the burning itself, not with the gate to the Aveda of the Halacha that goes prior to that. So L'cheira, it should have said, if the machlekes is even in the halacha, it should have said ba'lei lahilach b'yalei. It should have said ba'lei lahilach ulaktar, because the machlekes is also in the halacha. There's one halei kasha. Given the halacha tzarich aktarihi, since the avida of the halacha is for the burning on the mizbeach, karei aktara, he calls it aktara, but the halacha is included in the aktara. So, in fact, the Gemara Ella Nasnas HaKoimetz Al Mizbeach. And when the Braisa continues, it says he placed the Koimetz on the Mizbeach b'shtika, and then the Levina he did machshava. He should have said first im haylach v'nasnas hakoimetz, because the halacha is mashma. If you're saying that they're arguing by halacha, he should have said by the word haylach. From this that he didn't mention halacha, is mashma the Chachamim didn't argue by halacha. Only everybody agrees that machshava on the kaimetz alone will be sufficient. From this that he didn't mention halacha, kasha. Staka, good kasha, according to Ish Lakish. Says the Gemara, if David hikte shumshum, if he was makter only one seed from the kaimetz, das lechol kishir shumshum with the mindset to be makter to eat only one shumshum, but after this man, and then he did again, he burnt another piece of shumshum, and then he had a mind to eat again the next piece of shumshum, a little piece after the allotted time, till he finished the whole levena. So Rav Chizda, Rav Huna, Rav Sheshes, Rav three by machlokes. Chad Amar pigul. One says it's mamash pigul. Chad Amar puzzle. One says he's not. It's possible, but he's not chayiv kares as pigul. Chad Amar kasha. One says it's kasha. Lema man, the one who says it's pigul kirameya is like Rameya, who says that even by chatzah matir, it's going to become pigul. Every little seed of the levina that was burned from the kemitz levina is considered as a chatzah matir. So his mashavas pigul was in the time of a chatzah matir. So Rameya holds even in such a case it's mamish pigul. Mandam apostle k'habanim. Because it's like the Rabbanan. They say if he had only a machshav b'chatzah matir, not by all the matirim, because he didn't do a full kezayis, he only by each shumshin he had a machshavas pigul, so then there's no kares. But the kam is possible. Man the Amar kasha, the one that says it's kasha, ki Rebbe, holds like Rebbe, that he says chatzoi achiles with two chatzoi amater, they don't combine even to passel the carbon. How do you know that our case is totally in these three shitas? Maybe Rameya said over there that in a time when he burnt the full shear on the fire, that he did a whole kmitza b'vas, and in the time when he was burning the whole kmitza b'vas, he had a machshavas pigul. That's where he says it's that a chatzah amata will be good. Where he only had machshavas pigul on the kmitza and not on the levena. But here, when he did the haktarah, he did it on little crumbs, not a full shear. So maybe in such a case, even according to Hameya, the isa pigul won't be chal. Maybe the Chacham didn't say that you're not mefagel b'chatzah mater, ela the leichish maybe kli mater, because he never had a machshava throughout all those things that are mater the shirayim. He only had a machshavas pigul by the kemetz, not by levina. Aval Hachman, in our case, he did it piece by piece, but at the end he did it through all the pieces. So it was in the whole thing that's being mated the shirayim. The chishmei b'kolim mater. He was at the end. If you look at the end of the whole picture, the whole kmitz and the levena was with the machshava pigul. So maybe in such a case, hachanam the pigul. Maybe in such a case, the chacham will hold it is pigul. But can we come a Rabbi Hassam? Rabbi said when it's chatzoi achiles with the chatzoi that are matter are not combined even to pasal hakam eloi hadamalia. It's only when he doesn't complete the share of achila is aveda that he started. The machshava, the second machshava was bisman shchitas keves echad. He had half a machshava by one keves and a chatzi zayis, and one machshava and another chatzi zayis with another keves. Aval in our case, the hada malya, he was mashlim the whole share of achilam isaveda. That where he started to have the machshava, it wasn't like one keves; it was like on both kfasim, because he had constantly machshavas till he did the full kmitz and levena. So hachanami the possible. Maybe in such a case, Rabbi would agree that it's possible. Therefore, the Gemara explains machlekes in a different way. Alamadi Yoma that the carbon is pigul. Let it be hakel according to all the shitas. And Mandi Yoma that carbon is possible. Let it be hakel. The one that said pigul could be let it be hakel. The one that says possible is let it be hakel. And Mandi Yoma kasher is let it be hakel. Mandi Yoma pigul let it be hakel. Kasava he holds when the kohen is makter many haktaris of the shimshum, meaning with a Machshavas Pigel to eat it after a lot of time. So it's many achilas like the shir shumshum of the shenayim, derech achila b'kach, derech haktar b'kach. Even though it was a little bit of food at a time, and a little bit of burning at a time, but since it's the derech to eat a little bit at a time and to burn a little bit at a time, so every machshava b'shas aveda wasn't a kosher to away, and the machshava of the achila was also a kosher to away. So therefore it's pigel. Man the Amma rak pasul litmeakel kasava because ain't derech achila b'kach. It's not the derech like the first shita says to eat. It's not the derech because he holds that it has to be kezayis. Ain't derech haktar b'kach, and so too the burning is also only when there's a full share. It's as if a mincha that wasn't burnt on the mizbech at all, and that's why it's possible. There's no teres pigul in Yechiv Kares because Machshavas HaPigul wasn't in the Zman of the Aveda. Because the Zman of Aveda means that you had the whole shear. The whole shear there, and that's the Aveda. But if you did a little bit at a time, that's not Zman Aveda. According to the man that the korban is kosher, he holds the burning the seeds a little pieces at a time of the shumshim, that's considered as aktorah. But the machshava of eating just one piece after another, one little piece after another, that's not considered as machshavas achila. That he had a machshava of eating after his man. It's so little pieces. So you see, the mincha was kil chasa, but the machshavas pigul wasn't a real machshava. It wasn't a machshavas pigul because the machshava of eating it piece by piece, that's not achila. So it's not machshavas achila to eat a lach hazman. So it's not a machshavas pigul. That's why it's kosher legamri.